one thing that drew me to the event that I was at, it was a 2.5-day event. And they're like, by day 3, you're going to do a channeled keynote. You're not going to memorize it. You're not going to write it. You're just going to pick like the opening and just run. I was so afraid and exhausted. I was like, I do not want to go. And it's like, okay, I'm not going to think about that, and I'm just going to go. And then you're there, and I'm like, I don't really want to get up there right now because I don't know what I'm going to say because I'm channeling my soul. I'm like, but then you just get up there. And you just continue to take the actions without getting into your mind, and you let the soul lead, because in that moment your soul had this vision, the soul had this calling to create this event, and the moment we let our logical mind step in, it's only going to hold us back. So I feel like if people are looking for a tangible piece of advice, it's like literally don't think.
Don't think and put it on your calendar. Like those are the two honestly.
And just show up.
Honestly, and then here's the other thing, it's we can have an idea of what we want to do and be afraid of it because the bigness, we can overthink our way out of it, whatever. But then you do it and the fear dissolves, but also suddenly it doesn't seem so big.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to catch up. I haven't seen you since the Oracle event.
Yes. Well, I also want an update from you about that, like from the audience
the Oracle event
side. Yeah. That event, I feel, changed a lot for a lot of people. I'm curious your experience.
Well, I think you shared that you were surprised people like day 2 in ways more than day 1. And it was interesting because when we last spoke, you were like, do I keep channeling or do I just kind of show up as Christina? And we talked about the importance of both, channeling and how people receive that information differently, as if versus just Christina. And I think that day was just like the blend of both energies and just a reminder that your intuition was not wrong, that people want to see more Christina. For me, it was really profound. I was sharing before we hit record is that, I shared on our last episode, I went through this big breakup and I thought, okay, any sort of energy clearing that needs to come up, it didn't come forward. And I think after that just kind of anchored me deeper into like my mission, and just seeing you in your power is always activating, I think, for anybody in that type of space. And since then, I just feel like I just did my first keynote yesterday.
Congrats. Yeah. Amazing.
But I feel like energetically so exhausted from like, I feel like I've been quantum leaping ever since that event.
Yes.
How do you feel since that event?
I feel the same. I feel like it's been just hyperdrive so fast. I feel like so much has changed. I haven't processed, and even just I saw some people last night who were at the event and they were asking me how my experience, and I was saying, when you host something like that, I'm not processing during it. I'm just like in the moment and I'll deal with it later, whatever is coming up for me. And there was just so much I had to process just from first of all facilitating and what came through, but like the information that came through and the facilitation process and like the initiation for me and how big that was and how that affected, the team. And I think a lot of relationship dynamics, and it was right on that eclipse point, and there was just so much changing in my life. And I feel like I don't know, like it's been nonstop since then. And I've just been kind of in this snowball of things shifting and kind of just like processing as I go. But I just think everything really did change, and I'm still collecting information and feeling in from that. But it's been really powerful for me to hear other people's experiences and interesting. I mean, I appreciate what you just said, and I think a lot of people had that takeaway too. There's just something about like me doing that opened up a lot for people, which for me is really nice. It's really sweet, right? Outside of just the information, but people had powerful changes. I mean, like Kundalini risings and huge life shifts. And I think there was a lot of deep reflection that came from it. A lot of people were telling me like a week later, like, I'm still processing.
Yeah.
And I love that because we did so much in such a short period of time.
Yeah, and I brought my friend with, and she had like that massive release during your energy healing, and she's a channel as well. And so I know, even talking to her, I'm checking in with her each week. How are you feeling since the event? How are you feeling? And she talked about, I just felt this witch wound clearing, and then I was like, Christina just said that on the Oracle call, so that's right.
Yeah.
And talking about me stepping in doing my first keynote, that I was so triggered the day before in a way that I wasn't expecting, because I've done so much work. And I think what's happening is we're just going deeper and deeper into our power, but then clearing all the last remnants of what's going on there. And so while I wouldn't necessarily call it like the witch wound, deep clearing around like that I matter and that my message matters and my gifts matter. Yeah. And there's 95% of me that knows that. But that 5% was like begging to be cleared. Mm-hmm. And so I'm curious, you standing up in a group of, what was that, 200 people? 200 people channeling. What did that clearing of the witch wound feel like you either in real time or like post-event? What did that look like for you?
So much came up for me, and this started with just doing the oracle calls every week and like showing up in that way. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I had a lot of that with every iteration of my channeling, like this, I don't know, this resistance of putting myself out there on that way because of so many memories of doing that. Mm-hmm. And horrible things happening to me and like lifetimes of dying for it. Yeah. And one of my friends, Zaya, like I remember she was talking about speaking, and she had said something like, you know, everybody in the audience like has either wanted to kill you before or like loved you. You know, it's like that kind of vibe.
What vibe you get from me that I want to kill you?
I think you loved me.
I think I loved you.
It was very healing because I was really like in that room. I felt like I was in a room with all the people who were with me then.
Right.
Like I really did. Mm-hmm. And when I went into the oracle state that day, you know, a different thing happens every time, but it was almost like the current reality got mapped onto a hologram of like ancient Greece. Mm-hmm. And I was seeing everybody around me in those other clothes. And I was like, oh, I'm back with my people. And I think there's no coincidence of who came there. And who was a part of it, you know? And I think there's a lot of healing in that way, but it felt for me with that setting, a lot more like we're all back here together. Mm-hmm. Instead, not like we're clearing karma of like you tried to kill me before. Like that wasn't really how I felt in that certain setting. But that does come up for a lot of speakers, mm-hmm. you know, people who are standing on stages when you can feel that energy. So I think for me, it was so much more about just the act of doing it. Like all I knew is I just have to get on that stage. Like I just have to get up there, mm-hmm. and from there everything is easy. It was just the act of doing it. It was the same thing with oracle calls, mm-hmm. where I just felt so much. You know, it reminded me of when I was younger and didn't necessarily have the tools to understand my emotions, and also mm-hmm. had a lot more self-judgment, where I would get extreme anxiety about things that had, I would say, there's no logical cause, and I would get so frustrated, and it mm-hmm. would feel like I was entering like doomsday, like just the torture in my body, and I couldn't understand what that was about. Mm-hmm. And now I understand, you know, there's things from other lifetimes and like a soul memory that contributes to that. And so I was just feeling a lot of this like pressure and intensity and spiraling and like couldn't sleep and whatever that was just directly connected to, I mean, I have visceral memories, you know, from doing that work in other lifetimes, and being hunted, being killed, being tortured, mm-hmm. like being pushed to say things I didn't want to say, like all of that. Mm-hmm. I was very aware of that, and I was like, I just have to get on the stage. And the second I got on the stage, it like resolved. And I think it was also just so healing for me to be in a room of that many people who were on that frequency with me and like mm-hmm. so fully in it, mm-hmm. and so fully accepting. And with all this work, I'm so confident in myself, and I have, you know, everybody in my life is like on my wavelength. And then there's also that piece of my inner child, like that is aware of when I bump up against certain people, you know, the judgment. And so there's that piece of me, like I get on that stage and I'm like, is there going to be someone in the audience that's like, what the fuck is this? You know, I don't want to be judged in my sacred work. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a sacred thing. Yeah. And that's been one of the hard things for me. I think probably for a lot of people about sharing my gifts. It's more than just, are people going to judge me? This is sacred divine work for me, and mm-hmm. I'm in my happy bubble with it. Don't fucking burst it. Like, mm-hmm. you know what I mean? Like I don't want to put that out there. Mm-hmm. And so it was really healing for me to do that work and have everybody just receive it so lovingly, and so it was like so welcomingly, and to see the shifts, you know, and like to see all the healing, and also for me to have a space to bring all of my gifts together and combine the channeling and the coaching and the energy healing, like all of it at the same time. So yeah, I think it was just about showing up and doing it. And that kind of did the healing work for me, for sure.
Yeah, 100%. And that was me yesterday. Like, I was crying the day before, and then I did it and I was so afraid. But then after you do it and you step out and you share your gifts, and you share your story, it dissolves.
Yeah.
And action is the key to dissolving a lot of fear. And I think obviously fear is holding a lot of people back from taking action. Yeah. So what advice would you have for listeners who are feeling afraid to step into the light, to share their message, to do their sacred work, and moving beyond that fear to step into their power like you did that day?
I had this conversation with somebody yesterday, and it's just as matter of fact for me as I am aware of the fear, and I'm aware that I have to take action for anything to change. So I just let that exist. I plug it into my calendar, what I'm doing, and I show up.
Yeah.
And I know it sounds so simple to people,
yes.
but people bring me that question, and this came up yesterday, and I think wanting some big motivational speech.
Yeah.
And that's just not how I do it.
Yeah.
I'm not giving myself some big motivational speech that's then motivating me I want to take the action. I'm like, I have to brush my teeth. Yeah. I'm not jumping out of my bed to brush my teeth, but I just do it.
Right.
And so I approach these types of things the same way. I know that if I show up, it will dissolve, and I'm going to be uncomfortable until it dissolves. So whatever, I'm uncomfortable, I'm afraid, it's plugged into my calendar. I just get there, and I just head down, walk the plank, it's kind of how I approach it. And that's how I approach everything with my business and my life. And I think that's part of sometimes the benefit of my speed, the way I do things, because if it takes too long, I'm going to overthink it.
Yes.
And overthinking it is not serving me. So it's this is on the calendar, we're showing up to it. And I think with this event, I've wanted to do it for so long, and I've been scared. And the way that it unfolded was so fast and so quick that I didn't have a chance to think about it or to sit with it of do I want to, or am I ready? It was just, we decided one day, we put a date on the calendar that was really soon. We were in a sea of planning and all the logistics, marketing, all of that. And I did not have a second to think about it. And it was the week of the event that I had maybe a day, because, I should rest. Right. And I was like, fuck, I should rest, right? Because the second I was like, oh, there's a day for me to rest, I got to get ready. I needed to, but suddenly I was there with my thoughts. And I was like, if I was really here with my thoughts before this, I would not be here. I would have canceled it. I would have moved it. I would have said we need to do XYZ beforehand. And so I just did everything I could to not let myself think.
Right.
That's
the action.
Yeah.
That is the key. Yeah. Because when I think about yesterday with my keynote, one thing that drew me to the event that I was at, it was a 2.5 day event. And they're by day 3, you're going to do a channeled keynote. You're not going to memorize it. You're not going to write it. You're just going to pick the opening and just run.
That's perfect.
And I was so exhausted after day 2 of just being triggered from my story doesn't matter. You can't do this. Yeah. And I went to the beach, the ocean that night, and just sat there for an hour and a half. And I was like, I refuse to think about what I'm going to say tomorrow. Yeah. I'm not going to think about it because I know I'm going. And I just allowed myself to just be and not think. And the next day I got up and I just, quite frankly, we talked about this in my last episode with you. It's this was a big dream of mine. Yeah. And it's I was so afraid and exhausted. I was I do not want to go. And it's okay, I'm not going to think about that, and I'm just going to go. Yeah. And then you're there, and I'm I don't really want to get up there right now because I don't know what I'm going to say because I'm channeling my soul. I'm but then you just get up there. Yeah. And you just continue to take the actions without getting into your mind, and you let the soul lead, because in that moment your soul had this vision, the soul had this calling to create this event, and the moment we let our logical mind step in, it's only going to hold us back. So I feel if people are looking for a tangible piece of advice, it's literally don't think.
Yeah, don't think and put it on your calendar. Those are the two honestly.
And just show up.
Honestly, yeah. And then here's the other thing, we can have an idea of what we want to do and be afraid of it because the bigness, we can overthink our way out of it, whatever. But then you do it and the fear dissolves, but also suddenly it doesn't seem so big. Yeah. Right? Where it's almost I had this whole buildup, and I watch people, they'll spend 10 years of their life, I want to be a speaker, and they never try. And it's been 10 years, and now you just built it into this thing. And then you finally get on a stage and you do it, and you're that wasn't that big of a deal. Yeah. I should have just jumped in and did it, and I could have had 1 million reps in by now, And so, it's interesting because for me with that event, a lot of people were like, "Oh, are you afraid to speak in front of people?" I'm like, "No, that's never been the problem. Like, that's not the problem at all.
Yeah.
Like, it's the I don't even know. The fear around it was more the reception. It was more of like, this is my sacred work. This is very vulnerable for me.
Yeah.
Very vulnerable for me. And how is it going to be like received emotionally? It was more my fear. Like, it's not, I don't have a fear of getting on. I could talk in front of a million people.
Right.
So it was interesting, that part of it, because
it's that specific piece of the gift.
Yeah.
It's sharing the gift, which is where the fear exists. Not the being in front of people, not the speaking. It's the sharing of your sacred gift and have it being received.
Yeah. And like really putting it out there of people can judge it.
Yeah.
You know, but I think that's where we're being pushed. I mean, that's a lot of what came through that day. And it's funny how the things that came up that day, I mean, they've all been very true. Like this whole idea of everything you're seeking is where you're not looking, or even what you resist. And I've had so much change and unfold in my life since then very quickly. And it's all been everything I was like, hard no. Like before, a hard no. And it came to me through the hard no. And so it's just, I mean, it's cool for me. I'm like, yeah, it was right. I didn't plan that or like mean for that to happen. But yeah. So
yeah. I mean, I can relate because I forever was like, I'm not going to be a corporate speaker.
Yeah.
And then I met with your friend Sam, you know, now our friend.
Yeah.
And she was like, well, have you thought of corporate speaking? I'm like, that sounds so boring.
Yeah.
And then one day it just dropped in. I'm like, oh, that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's so weird. How is that the thing I'm doing when I was like, hard no?
Yeah.
It was like a hard no. Like, even
why was it a hard no?
It just felt boring. I was like, doesn't feel creative, and I want to be able to like kind of channel, right? I don't want to like have some memorized keynote. And I realized, no, you can customize it and you can make it your own. And I really realized that, you know, these are people who need our message
100%.
and bringing, you know, the spiritual perspective to the masses is a significant part of, you know, my work. And I think other people listening, and I know you talked about this in your last membership call around people sharing their spiritual gifts and perspectives beyond just the spiritual community. Yeah. I would love to, you know, maybe go deeper into your perspective on that, because you know, when we talk about creating this new earth and doing our work and showing up for our mission, sometimes it is, you know, staying in the spiritual space, and sometimes it's bringing our message out into new communities and into corporate and into other avenues. How do you see that from your angle and the importance of it? And I would love for you to speak to this moment in time, because there's moments I feel like that we feel so far from where us star seeds and light workers know that, you know, is possible. Where do you feel like, where are we at in this moment in time when it comes to bringing our spiritual work into the masses, into the mainstream?
I think that a lot of spiritual people are upset that there hasn't been more change, and they're pointing the finger at everybody else, and they need to point it at themselves, because spiritual people will have wounds about our gifts, and then we'll hide in the corner and only talk to people who believe the same things as us. And we're not doing any real work or any real change. You know, that wasn't the point of it. It's the most important thing that we take these lessons, these learnings, we embody this a new frequency, and we exist in society. Like that's how we shift society. And I think this also has to do with this like separation conversation that's been very present recently of like, where do we keep separating ourselves individually, but also like from each other? And here we are talking love and light and like unity consciousness, and we separate ourselves as a spiritual community. And that's something that's been always very important to me. I think a lot of people are surprised, like my, I guess, like close friend circles. I mean, it's a lot more mainstream than a lot of like my super spiritual friends. Like they all hang out with spiritual people and do spiritual stuff. And like, I like to live my life. You know, I think we're the same. It's like we do all of it. And that's really important for continuing to learn and either strengthen your own beliefs or shift them if they need updates. And there are so many more people that are receptive to new ideas than we assume. And this came up actually for me a lot when I went on that trip to Coeur d'Alene. And I just felt like the universe was showing me again and again through different conversations like people that I would never expect to be open or into this stuff, whether it was coming up spiritual, it was coming up with holistic health. There were so many conversations that unfolded with like random people who were like either already super into this that you would never expect, right? Or just very open, and they were like just asking questions. Yeah. And we have to be able to, I mean, the truth of the matter is most people are talking about the same shit. We're just using different language, you know? Yeah. And I always say this with like the entrepreneurship space, personal development. It's like entrepreneurs who say they're not spiritual, I'm like, or they don't believe in manifestation. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like all you talk about is manifestation. You just don't use those words. That's fine. And I think that's important that we're able to broaden our language and connecting with different people, so that we can actually shift some of these industries. I think a lot of times we're just running. And it is more vulnerable to open yourself up to people who could potentially not understand or reject you. But that's the whole point. Otherwise, we're never going to make any progress, because I just think we've been in a stalemate. And the spiritual community often, I feel, is expecting everybody else like level up, calibrate up, like raise your vibration. And it's like, no, you get the fuck in there and you change the vibration. Yeah. So it's like, if I know something, I feel the responsibility to do something about it. That's just how I am. So I talk about it. I say things, I communicate whatever I embody. And I think people need to look at that. Like, what do you know that you're not taking responsibility for? Because I feel like none of my life experiences are a coincidence. The things that I learn or I uncover that are profound for me, that are helpful for me, it's not a coincidence. Like, to me, that is divine responsibility. It got delivered to me in whatever way so that I could help other people. And I think that comes back to like, where am I saying I'm afraid, but like, am I just being selfish with what I know?
Yeah. Because if you don't share it, it's not a gift.
Yeah.
I mean, and it doesn't even feel good to keep it inside, because that's not the point of our perspectives, our ideas, our gifts, and our talents. They are meant to be shared. And in that sharing is where we get our greatest form of fulfillment. But again, it just goes back to being afraid to step into the light and be seen.
But it's like, this is the thing. People say they want to be leaders. I'm like, do you want to be a leader or not? Like for me, I'm like, I talk to leaders. And when I talk to somebody, I am holding them there because they are, and people rise into that. And people always act like they want to be leaders, but then they don't want to be leaders. I'm like, that comes with the territory. Right. You go first. Yes. Right. You say it first. You're going to be afraid to step into, like, leadership is, I'm in the light. Right. So what do you want? And I think there's a lot of cognitive dissonance around that for people to like tune into, what are you saying that you want? And then what are you saying you don't want? And are they the same?
Yeah. Right. Leaders pave a new path. They're trailblazers. And sometimes you might get it wrong. Yep. And until you test and learn and try it, you're never going to know. But to stay stuck is certainly not leadership. To stay small, to not speak out, to share your gifts. So when it comes to creating the new earth and your mission, I'm curious, obviously channeling is clearly part of your mission, but I want to go deeper than that. What unique perspective, or what do you feel like you're here to bring to the planet at this moment in time?
Oh my God, at this exact moment in time. I mean, I feel like I have a whole empire built out in my head about what I want to build and create. It's like it's a large master plan. Right. I think that people don't realize how much of a master plan person I am. Yeah. And
well, God, now I want to hear the master plan.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just channeling. I think channeling is one thing I'm offering of really just proving the, like, I don't know, I don't want to use that term, but showcasing you're a soul in a body. Consciousness is moving through you. Actually, my friend Kaylin, who also works for me, she had recommended this podcast recently called Where Is My Mind? Have you listened to that?
No, I've never heard
it. It is so good. Okay. I highly recommend it. Okay. And it's all about, like, it's a scientific exploration of, like, what is consciousness and all of this data about, like, it's not in the, like, the brain and consciousness are two different things. And it's like a scientific approach that explains spirituality. So I think it was a really good podcast. It's like an 8-episode series, but people like channels are showcasing that, and it's like kind of opening people's minds of, what's running through me. you know? And I think that also, I mean, we could get into personality and all of that. To me, that's kind of a small fish, to be honest. I really feel like for me, my big mission is energy work, is Ahai for me is like that divine deliverance. Like that is healing technology that like needs to spread and be really big. And so for me, training practitioners and teaching people how to work with the energy body and heal it is of the utmost importance, because they're going to try and take away our resources and continue to take away access. And when we learn to work with the energy field, you don't need money to upgrade your water. You don't need money to, you know, heal your body. Like, I just think that's a survival skill for people, especially the more they try to make us dependent on them for things. Like, I just think you've got to learn to work with your energy field. Like, if you're prepared for the grid going down and you're not a master at your fucking energy body, you're not prepared. That's how I feel, you know? And so when it comes to money, I mean, this is breaking the matrix, right? Literally. So Ahai and Ahai specifically came in for like light body activations, like and our bodies, we've barely scratched the surface of our own healing abilities. And we need to reactivate that. And so Ahai for me is like one of the biggest mission pieces, but the publishing house is another big mission piece for me to be able to work with people and take their message and help them get it to the masses is a huge piece for me. And the other piece for me that's really big is about the kids. I have big master plans about helping the kids and schooling for kids and training them in their abilities. And I mean, these kids are important and they're powerful, and I think they have all the solutions we're looking for. And so that is my like larger plan that I'm working on in the background. And those are like, for me, the bigger mission pieces. And like my purpose is to be a bridge between worlds. Like, that's it. And to show people the physical and non-physical, to be a translator in the meantime, but helping people unlock that whole other dimension in this dimension, which relates to, of course, like full expression and authenticity and all of that. But I think, and I was talking to Zai about this the other day too. We were talking about how, you know, a big piece of her mission is really like this full spectrum of expression, like with, you know, your embodiment and dance and movement and sexuality and fashion and all that. And my form of like that is much more like archetype work is a big piece of this, because it has to do with channeling and like the frequency that you're embodying and bringing forward. And to me, that's like different consciousness running through you. And it's like my mission is really unlocking the multidimensionality in a very like, I mean that literally, like not just like as an idea, like literally there are other dimensions going on that I see, that I know, that I feel, that not everybody has yet turned that on yet. And like the point is for me to be like, yo, I can see the field, I can see that orb around you, there's a spirit right there, like and all the implications for that, you know. So, but I think big picture, like all those tie in together for me about like what I need to bring on the planet right now. And that goes back to what you were just saying of like, it is my mission to get this to mainstream. And I can do that. I'm not, lots of us can do that, you know, but like I can do that. And that's really important to me. And that's very important to me, so much so that like you will see that in how I talk and how I write and how I share in my branding. Like it's all intentional to create an open space for different types of people to resonate, you know? So that's the part of the master plan.
Right. Because Zaya and myself, we connected afterwards. After, you know, we're on similar missions where we've talked about this, is like staying true to ourselves, but in a way that also creates an opening for a variety of conversations and people to receive our message. Yeah. And I'm curious, I want to go back. You talked about like the grid going down, and I feel like the energies lately have been wild. And I think somebody said the Wi-Fi was like a nationwide, like outage.
Yeah.
And normally I feel like there's always an energy, something going on. And then, there's this talk of like the love wave. And I'm like, what is that? And I just try not to like get too deep into that.
Yeah.
But I'm curious as far as like all the solar flash and the love wave and the grid and all this stuff. Part of me feels like, is that a real thing? Because I'm not connected in that way.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't know. We'll find out.
Yeah.
But I'm curious.
Yeah.
You mentioned it. And I was like, what is your perspective on that?
Oh, man. It's a big topic. My perspective on it is, it's complicated. First of all, I am not going to, I have it set up. Like if it's something like that's going to happen, I'm not going to know in advance. Like I have it set up that way.
Yeah.
Like if a fucking tsunami is going to happen, like I'm not going to know in advance. Like I'll probably be told, hey, you should go travel here. But like I have that kind of boundary. When I was little and I had no boundaries, I was receiving information about that kind of shit all the time. And I could not function like in society. Like I had extreme mental health issues because I was receiving I knew when natural disasters were going to happen. I knew when people were going to get hit by cars. I knew when people and I could not function. So I have a part of how I learned to just be able to be a normal person is I have that very strong boundary with my guides. Like if something's happening that I can't stop, like just support me, protect me, whatever. But like
don't drop the information in.
Yeah, because I don't know if like something bad like that's going to happen. I want to be in happiness and joy leading up to it. And then it happens. Like I don't want to be like anxious going into it.
And if you're afraid, then you're also feeding into that frequency.
That's the other piece of it. It's like on a logical and yes, tapping in of like what's going on in terms of gov and all that. Like, do I think that's a plan? Yes. Am I prepared in the ways that I'm prepared? Yes. Right? Like as prepared as you can be. Because there's some things it's like, it's just going to happen. And it is what it is. And everyone's going to be but everyone's going to be fucked at the same time. So part of me is like, whatever. Yeah. And at that point, who has the energetic tools to, adjust? And the other thing is if there's a reset with ill intention, I also know that reset will help us reset things positively. Right. So I do believe whatever happens for us, however, it's like, I think that's a very real possibility. However, I'm also aware of what I manifest. And I think like a lot of people who know that's a real possibility are unintentionally manifesting it. And I don't want to add to that. Yeah. So I'm also like holding I don't think it's actually going to happen for that reason. And there are a lot of things, that we have thought were going to happen. I mean, I was just listening to, it was a couple weeks ago. I was listening to some of the Dolores Cannon QHHT sessions, and they were talking about what was going to happen in 2012. And I remember going into 2012. I mean, I was in high school, and I was like, it's going to happen. Like I psychically, it's going to fucking happen. And I was like getting messages about getting prepared to be underwater. Like it was crazy. And I was listening to like recently those QHHT sessions, and it's person after person, they're super conscious or whatever, saying, yes, there's going to be a massive thing that happens in 2012 again and again and again. And like, it didn't happen.
There? Okay, I was like, was there?
No, it didn't. It didn't happen. Yeah. I mean, I know there's stuff with calendars and astrology, whatever.
Yeah, right.
But I'm talking about like saying like there's like a giant natural disaster like Noah's Ark shit. Right. And it didn't happen. Right. And we can set ourselves on new timelines. Right. Like, or even I think about 2000. I remember in 1999. Yeah. Going to the fucking forest with my family. Like they were like, we were going down. Like everybody thought we were going down in 2000. Like what the fuck's gonna happen? And nothing happened. And so there's this other piece of me that feels like this grid going down thing. It's almost like people are too prepared for it that I don't know if that it would actually happen anymore. Like I don't know if it's a good plan anymore. Yeah. And what I have gotten psychically about that, which could, and I say this, I don't always love to have these conversations because the like on podcasts and stuff because the information updates, like I check on this every single day.
100%.
And if you ask me, it changes every single
100%.
day.
Yeah.
I will tell you the last time I checked in on this, they told me that it was looking like it was going to happen, but only in certain areas.
Yeah.
Like just certain areas there was going to be that grid went down and there was that blackout and other areas wouldn't be affected.
Yeah.
And so that felt way more resonant for me.
Yeah.
Than everything. I think there could be some chaos that way, but I think I just think that a lot of times we build it up to be worse than it might end up being.
Yeah.
And I just want to hold the timeline that I want, right? Where that doesn't happen. But I also think that it's too much is out now.
Right.
Like the plans have to change.
Right.
And in this like energetic battle between dark and light, quote unquote, like there's been a lot of stuff that's unfolding consistently and there's been a lot of light anchored in. And I have just felt like very strongly it's a basketball game and we have 100 points and they have 20. Like that's literally how I feel.
So we're winning?
Yeah. And I mean, do you feel that I mean, post eclipse, like people are on a fucking high. Like
post eclipse, synchronicity after synchronicity after synchronicity, but in exhaustion.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that means something's moving.
It's moving a lot.
In a good
it's
way.
Moving
it's not
positively.
energetically exhausted in a bad way.
Yeah. Well, we did I think about my relationship with San Diego and it's been wild what's happening now where it was so dark here for me. There was dark shit happening and like I got rejected from this and I was like, fuck, I think San Diego's fucked. And I am being pulled back here and the vibes are so high again.
Wow.
And I think that
it was the Oracle event.
The event did a lot. We did a lot of light work. Like to have that many people and like having events like that, that potently, it does change a whole area.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons why I know a lot of people are being called to offer in-person events and like larger events. We need them all over because that can completely change the frequency of a place.
Yeah.
But I just feel like, on the heat map psychically, it's where the quote dark, I hate using that language, but you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like dark energy centers are like very few and far between now. Like it was a huge shift, a huge positive shift. And that has been kind of the update. So I feel a lot better. I mean, I'm going to be honest, like up until maybe 2 months ago, like for like a year, I was deep in like, we're fucked.
Yeah, because at your first Oracle event, the one that you just did with a few of us, they were like, it's kind of neutral. Yeah. So I was curious the update, you know, but it can change so quickly. And I'm a type of person like you where I don't attach to any particular timeline because I know it's always ever changing. And I think that's just a good message for anybody listening where it's like, cool, that's today and tomorrow it could be completely different, and hold whatever vision, whatever timeline you want to be a part of. Yeah. So I'm curious then when it comes to anchoring in the light and the mass consciousness, do you feel like more people are awakening? Because again, we're in our little bubble sometimes, and I feel like there's the 2012 awakenings, 2020. It's like, okay, now we're in 2024. Yeah. It's like, have people been waking up?
Way more people are waking up right now.
Because you talked about like you meeting random people that are open.
Yes.
And why I want to talk about that is so people can like let go of this idea that like no one understands them and they don't belong. Like the world we live in today is maybe different than the world we live in 2018 or 2015. Totally. Like don't use our past trauma and our past perception of the population don't bring it into the here and now. So I was just curious, checking in on the masses because that's what we're here to do, is ignite our human potential.
Yeah, well, we want to be like, we are the masses. That's the point.
Yeah, right.
And way more people are waking up. They have woken up, and this has to do with a lot of this like when we talk about getting into the field of the mainstream. Like people activate really, really quickly. And again, like I've had this as well, and I've seen this with a lot of people around me. Like I've met a ton of new people in the last few weeks, and they've all been people who are not like, it's like people I wouldn't expect, like not in this space, not spiritual, whatever. And in communicating with me, being around me, everyone's just like woken up, I'm like, holy shit, that's like a lot of change really quickly. And so people are really ripe, and a lot of people have gone through intense experiences. A lot of these relationship changes woke people up. So yeah, I just feel like way more people are awake now, honestly.
And then let's check in on the relationship piece, because I know that was a huge theme of last year.
Yeah.
And, you know, my marriage ended, and we talked a lot about that for a period in the Oracle calls. But I feel like we, in the Oracle calls, haven't checked in on it in a while. And do you feel like that's because a lot of people have let go of those relationships? The contracts have ended. People have made that decision. And from that decision, as you know, like that's a frequency. It's like once you decide. Where do the relationships stand today? Because I know there's a lot of back and forth, and I know how hard it is to let go and walk away. And you had a relationship end. And where do you think we are at collectively in, you know, stepping into this new iteration or this new template for, you know, divine union?
Yeah, I feel like, you know, there's waves of that because not everybody makes choices on the same timeline, and there's logistics. So it was kind of,
but there are themes.
Yeah, and so there was like this large theme of letting go, and I feel like it was this eclipse that was this like. It was shit or get off the pot energy. Yeah. Like that was the eclipse. And it was like that came out hardcore in relationships, and all types of relationships, romantic, but like business, friendships, just people being in your life. It's like, are you in or are you out? And a lot of that energy brought people like, yeah, okay, we're in. And at the same time, a lot of people, it was just like, it was done. And I had that big picture in my life. And like a lot of people where it was like this, sometimes we're in, sometimes we're out. Energy, and there was no conversation had, but the energy of it was like yes or no. And I shifted, and I realized I was like, it's a no. If you're not all the way in, it's a no. Yeah. You know, and so I think there was that kind of one of those big last waves around this eclipse. So a lot changed, but now the energy is a lot more about like who's coming into your life. People are getting divinely delivered. The thing is that these people that are getting delivered are not people that people are expecting. Like a lot of these people aren't awake yet, who you need for your mission. And so it's forcing us to do that work, right?
So don't write off people who are just like not awakened as like not part of your mission. Because it's funny you bring that up, because I feel like where I'm feeling a little stuck right now is like I'm very committed to not building alone. And when I talk about, you know, bringing my message into corporate and all of that, it's like I'm calling in people. And it's like, okay, well, are the people, because it feels like an overwhelming task sometimes on top of our own individual bullshit, you know? But I'm trying to call in more, you know, we're supposed to do this together. What advice would you have for people who are like calling in those people? It's like I'm setting the intention. I'm just showing up in the places I intuitively feel called, and I am meeting them. And I'm just curious. I just believe that's such a powerful part of our missions is doing it together and finding our people. Any other advice that you would share with people who are looking to build together and call in their people?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the other things I would say are what I was just saying about a lot of times we feel like we're open. Yeah. But we do still have a slight filter on in terms of like, oh, are they into this stuff? Like,
so don't even use that as a filter.
Don't even use that as. It could be anyone. It could be any of you, right? It could be anyone out there.
Okay,
and I think,
so maybe open. It's kind of like when our ego it's like it needs to look like this, and this type of person saying this, doing this work. So more opening our field to like anybody who's meant to serve with us. Anybody,
anywhere, anytime. Because I think people still do have that filter on a little bit of like they're expecting it. You know, to even with food, right? It's like, what do I want to eat today? And it's like you're already picking from this little collection of things that you want to pick from. I think that's one piece. I think the other piece I'm getting when you say that is they're just like action. Like it's a much more action oriented than like wait and receive. It's like as you're taking action, you're attracting. Yeah. You know? And so it's like option one would be, okay, I'm setting my intention and I'm vibing high and I'm sitting on the park bench and people are just walking over to me. And then option two is I am getting up off the park bench, walking into the middle of the park, dancing and seeing who I bump into and who bumps into me. And I'm also, you know, I'm seeing that person over there and I'm going and I'm grabbing them, hey, come dance with me. Right. And so there's that part of attraction as well. Yeah. It's like that action piece. And especially like if you're the person listening to this podcast, you're going to be the one to pull them out of their shell. And that's the thing of why it's so important we infiltrate. Like I realized this because we have these wounds of like, what are people going to think of us? Or I don't want to get into it with someone, you know. I mean, I recently had a very intense political conversation with someone where, I mean, and I don't talk about politics. Like, and I'm just like, I don't. ever. I mean, with people who I know are very mainstream political, I just don't even have, I don't have anything to say. And I got in this conversation with somebody, and it was a very long conversation, and it was hard. It was very hard. And where we ended up, I was like, fuck, that was so important. Like where we both ended up on the same page. Right. And I was like, we can't shy away from these conversations at all, you know? But I realized, in my own experiences, like, especially recently, like, instead of me letting people be around me and then having them hint to me that they're into this, and then I open up, which is what we tend to do. Like, I have to put it out there first and kind of grab them and pull them in. Hey, this is what I do. Like, this is what I'm into. Want to learn about it?
Yeah.
You know? And it's a very different energetic. And so it's that more actionable, like going out, doing the thing, kind of pulling people in, like, hey, I'm throwing a cool party. You want to come? Versus waiting for people to invite you to the party and getting accepted first. Like, you already accept yourself and then you invite them in.
Right.
That's a different energy. And that, I think that's the big thing that is important right now.
Yeah. And not that fear of rejection and abandonment. And I feel like that's why so many of us have been healing this shit these past few years, because that's the energy we need to bring to our mission.
Yeah.
So let's close out then with a little personal update. You think you're coming back to San Diego?
Yeah.
Where are you at since the breakup? Since you were in Arizona? Where are you at in life? What's new? Oh my God,
so much has happened. Yeah, and it's weird because I feel like, remember last year when I was just constantly traveling. Yeah. And I decided I was going to sell my house and move, and I was constantly traveling through it. And then even when I got back, you know, I got home and it was like, I got home, I threw a going away party, we packed up and I moved. Like, I was there for 2 days, and a big piece of my ego felt like I'm so upset, like, because I wish I could, when you know your days are numbered, you're like, I'm just like, I want to just soak in this house because I won't be here forever. And I didn't get any time to soak in that house. And it's been an interesting, like, similar theme right now with, I've just been go traveling so much. And I'd gone to, you know, I was in San Diego, then I go back to San Diego. I went to Idaho, and then I went to the Bay Area to see my family. My new fresh little nephew was born. He's just so perfect and adorable. And that starseed interaction was very powerful for me. And the way that all came in with the kids. And then I got back, and then I'm like back here this week. It's just all this back and forth. And I'm like, I got to get out of this house. The Arizona house. And I got to do it fast because I just have to. And again, I'm feeling that same feeling of like, but I want to soak it up. Like, I love the house. Like, I didn't have a chance to just like be in it. And I think that was part of the point. Yeah. Like, that was part of the point. I've been processing by being in movement. That's been really important for me. And I've realized that all this movement has helped me process. It's forced me to keep moving through. And I've picked up a lot and gotten all the information I've needed through all these different interactions and new stimuli. And I also feel like I've just been a snowball getting guided until eventually like landing in my spot. And I feel like I really feel like I'm about to land in my spot. And I told my team, I'm like, I need to land in my spot, and I'm on airplane mode energetically, and no one talked to me, and I have so much I want to birth out of me. And I think for a while I wasn't feeling very inspired, like a long time. And I have like 15 different programs, like I'm itching to birth out of my fucking body. And that feels amazing. And I'm like, I actually want to stay grounded. Yeah. And I feel like I had to be on the move and kind of in this in between and weird energy for a couple of years to get what I needed. And I was telling a friend about this. I was like, she was like, I'm traveling so much, but I need to sit down. I need to work. And I'm like, what are you working on? And she's like, I don't know. But I need to work. And I'm like, there's nothing for you to work on. That's why you're in movement. And then when there is something for you to work on, you're going to get plopped in and like deliver, you know? And I feel like I'm about to hit that phase, which I'm very excited about. I want to just hermit and create. I have a lot I want to create that is coming from, it was for me kind of really crystallizing this next phase of me. And a lot of that came through in this most like that Coeur d'Alene trip, and through the people I've met after the Oracle event, how that shifted me. And a lot of these new people that have come into my life have challenged me in different ways.
Tell me more.
Like,
who is coming in? What themes are in these new programs?
I don't want to talk about the new programs yet, but
the new people, because you talk the energy. I can tell they're bringing. What is this fresh energy or perspective they're bringing, or this activation?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, like a lot more mainstream people that I've just connected with in different ways, like friendship wise, personally, business, and who don't understand any of this. So the questions they're asking me, I'm like, good question. And
especially when you talked about creating a school.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you're like, what are the ABCs or the entry point? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, so one of the things that this whole all got triggered by someone I met who I'm dating now. And
we'll bury that at the end. Surprise, if you listened, congratulations.
He said, he was like, he read my book. Right?
And he read your book?
He read two of my books, but he read Manifestation Mastery pretty immediately. And he goes, I just don't understand why you're saying you're channeling it. And I go, because I'm channeling it from a different being. And you have to understand, he doesn't know about any of this, right? Yep. And he's like learning through me. He's like, but you're the one that has the information and you're writing it. Like, you could still do the same thing, but just say it's by you and you don't have to say it's channeled. But I'm like, but it's not me. He's like, but it is. It's coming through you. So
and that's what the Oracle said.
Yeah.
That it is you.
So he said that, and I went on this whole, and I'm like defending myself from the energy of how much it took for me to come out of the closet. And I was telling him, like, my ego would have loved, it would have been way easier for me just to receive that, write it, and be like, yeah, this is me talking about manifestation. Look at me, I'm so smart. It was more for me at the time, the up level of like, I talk to spirits and I'm writing a whole book from a spirit. And that was, and here I am kind of putting myself on the line of, this is exactly what was said. I wouldn't necessarily say all of this. I don't necessarily even agree with all of this, but I'm putting my name on this book. Like that was actually the up level and activation. But where I've got now at this point in my journey, like he was exactly right. And that was the point of like, where am I hiding behind that? You know what I mean?
100%.
And I had talked to you like the membership and whatever. I was like, I have these gifts where I can talk to all these beings, and there's always a piece of me that kind of resents it, where I'm like, but what about Christina? And I don't need to channel another being also to know what they're gonna say. Like, and channeling another being is a lower vibration than me just channeling me.
From source energy.
Yeah, from source. It is because it's a lower consciousness, you know, in terms of dimensionally. And so that simple, and lots of little things happen like that, where it was like these questions, and I'm like, okay, maybe that is the point. Like I can receive all of this, and the up level is, what does it look like for me to be like, Christina is saying this. This is my opinion. And it's easy. It's sometimes, I think it's gotten to the point where it's easier to hide behind, I channeled this. You know, it's like,
I totally get it. It's an embodiment. Yeah. It's like, can I take all of it and collapse it into Christina?
Yeah. Well, it's one thing to say something controversial and say, this is what the guides are saying, take it or leave it. It's another thing to receive that, collect it, and be like, yeah, I agree with that. And Christina, and me as Christina, this is my opinion. Like that is different, a different energy. 100%. And for me, which is what I talked about in the Oracle call, I did realize that, it's been me hiding my power. And I do that because I know how triggered people get by me. I mean, my whole life. And with the Oracle work, for example, it's like people want to hear it from the Oracle because it's separate from Christina. And the second, because I know all the same stuff, I don't have to go into Oracle mode to say the exact same. Like it's my brain now.
Yeah, Christina is channeling this wisdom, but we all channel wisdom in our own ways.
100%.
You just channel it in your Christina way.
Yeah. So it's like, it's same information, but people don't like it when it's delivered through a person. You know, it gets very triggering. And I realized where I was, hiding because of like to do that. And it was like, no, that's the real up level now. It's like, just embody it. And it's okay if people get triggered. And if they don't, however they want to take it. And that felt just so correct for me. And I think, I was telling the girls, I'm like, it's funny. I feel like we just came really full circle, but like we had to make the full circle. Like the whole journey is an important piece of it. So yeah, that's changed a lot, was just how I'm orienting. And a lot of the themes of what I'm releasing are about like how it's embodiment.
Yeah.
It's embodiment of all of the different aspects of our consciousness and how we live that out, which is really how do I live out the full expression of my power, and kind of how I've engineered that. Because I think that people talk about that idea, but for me it's been a very engineered, like step-by-step thing, not just an idea of live your power. It's like very tangible. And so that's kind of what I've built out that I want to fully create, you know? So those are a lot of the themes that came forward and things. But yeah, moving back has been a big thing. Changing kind of channeling style and some energies around it. It hasn't been, I think for other people it won't be that big of a shift. It's more of an internal shift.
Yeah, it's really embodying the multidimensional brand. Because when you made that shift, I was like, I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
But now it's making sense to me why you were guided to that, because when you talk about kind of embodying all the channel messages, that's embodying your multidimensional self versus seeing it as separate and like really reclaiming your power in that way.
Yeah.
And it's trusting that whatever journey you went on to Arizona and wherever else, that okay, now you're embodied and you can come back, and it's bringing a new energy.
Totally. So there's that, and then there was this new relationship, which has really helped me grow a lot. Like,
in what ways?
Like, just I feel really challenged, like in a good way. I'm like really learning a lot about myself. I'm noticing places where like I block myself. There's a lot coming up with vulnerability for sure. I feel like in my career, this relationship has really reignited my passion and my inspiration, and even like things like that, you know? So, but I think just different, you know, there's a different depth, right? A different type of connection. That's been very, and a good growth experience of like, I manifested this person and it wasn't what I expected, you know, like I have never dated someone like him before, and he's never dated someone like me before. And so it was both that kind of thing where we're like, I manifested you exactly, but like I did not expect it would be like this, you know?
It makes total sense, because when we were talking about dating last time, and you were like, oh, I get so fucking bored sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm fucking channeling all this shit, so I get bored. And I was like, I could kind of tell that was a story you had. And I was like, I get it. Like, she wants somebody to like, we're here to like live our lives. We want to like have fun. We want to be challenged. And it's like, you're not bored, are you?
No.
But it didn't come in the package.
Definitely not bored.
In which you were expecting.
Yeah. Well, and I realize I've learned a lot. Yeah, it's different levels of like childhood wounds and things that I think when I was younger, the way that people questioned me was not coming from a loving space and was very traumatic for me. And I spent a lot of time in defense mode. And it was so exhausting for me that I never wanted to do that again, you know? And so I had that wound around like being challenged or questioned, and like had, you know, kind of a parental wound with this of like, it's, if you're questioning me, you don't love me. And it was like a very deep kind of twisted, like whatever, but this has been healing that for me. So yeah, it's healed a lot of different it's just a lot of other wounds that like different people highlight different things, you know? And so when you meet someone who's very different from you, you're seeing a whole other side of yourself that's like, whoa, there's all that stuff that hasn't been looked at that I didn't know was there. And it's a lot of it's from childhood and it's getting healed. So that's been really helpful for me. The living situation thing, of course, like here I am coming back to San Diego, and I really think that I did need to make that whole shift. And, you know, some people have been like, maybe you just needed to travel. And I'm like, no, I needed to move. The thing is that I move very quickly. Like I full send and I collapse. Like what takes most people fucking 10 years to learn the lessons to take action on, I go out and I do it so quickly and then I'm done.
Yeah, you create brand new environments for yourself over 100%. And over again. And everyone's like, why is this taking so long? Well, look around. What have you really fucking changed?
Yeah. So
you went to breathwork class?
Yeah, exactly.
That's
and
it?
I changed my whole life. You know, you move and everything. There's so much that unfolded so fucking fast in Arizona that had to. And it was only going to unfold there. It wasn't going to, and I moved through it really fucking fast and then I was done. And I mean, I love Arizona. Like, I don't know all the next steps. Like right now I'm for sure getting pulled back to San Diego. And it was weird because, you know, I mean, this has been building for a while and I had told the team I think we need to move back because I'm getting pulled back for work so much. And that wasn't what it was like when I first moved. But yeah, I don't know. I would love Arizona. Like I would totally live there like later in my life again, or maybe even in 2 years. I don't know. But right now that's where I've got to be. So it's like full circle. And there was a moment in February I came back to San Diego and I was just like used to it rejecting me and everything going wrong. And I was fucking welcomed in, like welcomed in. I was like, everything has been synchronistic and magical and beautiful. And every time I come back here, I get this positive hit of energy. And it was so different than how it felt before for those years. So I'm like, yeah, I'm supposed to be here. And the other thing that I've changed a lot that I wanted to mention business wise is shifting a lot of the dynamics within how I work, where I'm going a lot more back to like solopreneur energy, which I realized that I had a lot of ideas in my head about what I needed to scale the way I wanted to scale. And it was just feeling a lot harder. And the easiest times for me of scaling my business have been when I'm doing all the things that everybody says you shouldn't do to scale, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because you can move quickly.
Yeah, I move so quickly.
Right.
Yeah.
Versus when more people, more aspects, it's like the bigger the ship, the slower it is to move, and you move quickly. So that makes sense.
So it's like I can actually scale really well, like just with less attached, you know? So we've made a lot of changes. So it feels a lot like just cleaner and simpler, and I'm doing more and I'm going to be doing more, and I like that more, you know? So I think that has been a big theme for me that I've talked to a lot of friends about, like in different ways of, hey, I had an idea in my head about what I should be doing. And I was actually talking to Avea's coming on later today. I saw her on Friday and I was telling her like, all these people for years were telling me like, you know, you're tuning your masculine energy, being your feminine energy, blah, 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 which I actually don't think that was right, to be honest. And I have a very strong masculine, but I also have always had a very strong feminine.
Agreed.
But I think that because I have a strong divine masculine, people think that's hyper masculine.
100%. But they aren't seeing that you're also pairing that with your creativity, your receptivity.
Yeah. And so people will see me in one context, but I think people are just so used to I think people are very used to no divine masculine at all.
I agree.
Right. But I'm like, I've never actually had a feminine problem when I look at it. And so I went so far on the other side of the pendulum that it really fucked me up.
Yep.
And one of the things, again, it was like, I was telling Avea, like, everybody's in my ear, like, spaciousness in your calendar and like doing so much less and blah, blah, blah. And I did that. And for years, it's like I've had like nothing on my calendar and I feel horrible.
Yeah.
And the more, as I've just let myself do what I like to do, which is be busy and be productive and be bopping around and fill my schedule. Like the last however long, I've just let myself do that. And I'm fucking on fire. Like I feel amazing. And she was reflecting back to me. She's like, yeah, she was like, I was feeling that, like, especially at your event. She's like, you're built for that. Like that is genuine, authentic for you. And she was saying like, you know, I'm not like that. Like I like spaciousness. I like, and I'm like, I'm the opposite. And when I had all that spaciousness that everybody thinks they want, I hated it.
Yeah.
And I did it for like 3 years.
Same.
And now that I'm back to just doing it the way I want to do it.
Yeah. I feel like me again.
Yeah. I feel like me again. And everything's working out amazingly.
Yeah.
And so that has been a really important realization for me of just like, I'm not letting anybody in my ear.
Yeah.
And it's, I take feedback well, and I'm like not too confident that I think that people don't know more than me. And that's why I think I actually sometimes listen to people too much.
Yeah.
Like because I know that lots of people know more than me.
And you're very open.
Yeah.
So you're like, maybe
I'm super open. Yeah. And so I love to learn from people. And so I've listened to all types of people. And I've realized a million places where I've been taking people's advice who, you know, not that it's bad advice, it's good for them and successful people, and they know more than me. And that's why I'm like, yeah, sure. Like I want to learn, but it wasn't authentic for me. It wasn't in alignment for me, you know? And so it just made everything feel harder. Yeah. And so I feel like I'm just like really returning back to an old me, you know? That's back also a new
beginning.
Me. Yeah, back to the beginning.
Right, but entirely new.
And
all
it just
the same.
works way better.
Yeah.
Like, so it's one of those full circle moments for sure.
I'm so glad you brought that up, just because I feel like somebody out there, I mean, I needed to hear that, because me and my friend Scout were the same. We're like, we are just, we have our masculine energy, and and sure, we had to cultivate our feminine over the years, but it's a question I've always had, like in the spiritual community. I feel like nobody's really talking about this divine masculine, and I kind of feel like that's one of my gifts. It's like, but no one talks about it. And so I'm like, well, I don't want to talk about it because someone's going to say I'm too my masculine and me my feminine. And it's like, when I'm speaking, sometimes people are like, well, I have this blend of like no bullshit, but then like, here, let me tell you a story. And you have that too. And I think I would love for future podcasts you to like talk more about igniting that divine masculine, because I think we've gone way too far in the direction, because I think there was some healing that needed to be done. So we kind of needed to, the pendulum needed to swing perhaps, right? All for a reason. But now it's like bringing in that divine masculine conversation around like that healthy balance. I think now is a time of divine masculine energy. And like, there's so many people in my field that are like, I'm bringing in this divine feminine, and I'm just like, ugh, like that's just not me. I'm like, where are the other, like where I magnetize right now to are the people who are like bringing forward the divine masculine. Again, there's nothing wrong with that, but that's just like, I'm ready to move, but move in a healthy way. That's not, because I'm also in the field sometimes with people that are like exhausted and burnt out, and that's not what I'm talking about. That energy drains me to be around it. That's not what I'm talking about.
That's not healthy divine masculine.
Exactly, the healthy divine masculine, people who are energized and excited and lit up. That is what is the most magnetizing to me right now, and I feel like I don't see it enough. And when I talked about earlier who I want to call in, that's the energy of who I'm trying to call in, and I think because it maybe doesn't exist as in a healthy way. That I'm not trying to tell myself the story, it doesn't exist. But that's like what I'm looking for. And also sometimes when we're leaders, we have to go first and we have to set the tone, and we can't just like write people off because they're not there yet.
Well, I mean, that is big picture. Like when we talk about like the programs and the stuff, like, I mean, I'm so excited about that. Like I've mapped everything out. I'm like, I just need to get home and record shit, you know? But it's really about, like for me, it's about how do we live our power, right? Fulfill the mission that requires taking action. And it's a lot about like full queen energy, like queen energy. And that was a big thing that got reflected to me like in wild ways nonstop. There was recently, and it was like, how do you do that? And the thing is that the queen has a strong divine masculine. Like that is core to it. And so a lot of the stuff I'm putting out is going to be about teaching divine masculine.
Oh my fucking God. Of course.
It is.
So I'm like, where the fuck is this? Because I can feel it. Like I'm a fucking futurist. I'm like, I can see it. And I'm like, where the fuck is it? Where are the teachers? And where are the other people living it? And that's why I love you so much. And I'm glad that you came into my field, because it's just like, we're just on the same wavelength, right? It's not better or worse, you know, but it's just like,
we need all of it. But that's the problem. It's like, we need all of it. In the conversation with divine feminine, divine masculine, we need to cultivate the divine feminine 100%.
And there's the people who are meant to lead in that aspect 100%. About healing that, leading in that way. Absolutely. But that's not me.
Yeah. But also that without this masculine is why people in spiritual space aren't doing anything.
I know.
They're just meditating and talking about it, and they're not doing anything, and you're not fulfilling your mission. Like you came here to do.
Handle it.
You came here to do.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Yes, 100%. You came here to be.
You came here to create
reality.
You came
here to be and to do.
Right. Without action, there is no creation.
Yeah. 100%.
Period.
So I think that side of it's gotten lost. And again, it's like, I'm not saying it's all the way over here either. I'm saying it's both. It's like
both.
We get to be, we get to intuit, we get to be in our family, we get to create, we get to play. We don't have to try so hard. And also living your mission is taking action. Taking action doesn't have to feel like a hustle or a grind or I'm burning myself out. Like there's a space for all of it, you know?
Right. We get to create. We don't have to create. We get to create. And how fucking fun and exciting is that? And the moment it feels like a have to, well then fucking get in your feminine energy and go take a fucking bath.
100%. All of it can exist. So that I'm really excited about that.
Good.
I think it's needed right now. I think that, you know, again, it's what I tell other people, and the same thing for me. I'm like, where do I see the gap?
Yes.
And it's like, I will just feel it then.
Right. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for being the leader that we all need. Because that's not my role. You know what I mean? I'm not the person that's meant to teach divine masculine. I have another mission.
Yeah.
And I'm working on that. But it's like we all play our part. And I'm just proud of you for leading. And I hope that this conversation inspires other people listening to step into whatever they're meant to lead.
Yeah.
And in order to lead, I think it's a key component to embody that divine masculine energy, not just to know and to see and to feel inspired by, but to actually create it.
Yep. Embody it, live it, have all of it.
Yes.
Inner source, you know?
We got this.
We got it. We got it. Thank you. This is so fun.
Thanks for having me. It was so fun to catch up.
Finally.